A peaceful town thrived on the valuable mineral resources found underground. The town's miners descended into the depths of the earth every day, extracting precious minerals. However, one day, an unexpected disaster posed a terrifying threat to the town. A group of miners, venturing into the deepest layers of the mine, encountered a massive collapse while digging, suddenly buried beneath the earth. The miners were trapped underground. Initially, darkness and silence prevailed, but soon this silence was shattered by screams echoing with panic. The trapped miners deep within the mine realized that escaping to the surface was impossible. They couldn't call for help from the outside world because communication had been severed. Trapped in the darkness and confinement, these people faced a grueling physical and psychological struggle. The air underground was deteriorating, and their limited food and water resources were running out. Fear and despair began to spread among the group. While some tried to understand what had happened, others grappled with the horrifying effects of the incredible darkness and silence. These people trapped deep within the mine had to cope with both physical and mental distress. Without finding an exit, they would have to strive to survive in the clutches of fear and hopelessness. Hour by hour, the miners trapped deep within the mine faced increasing challenges. After the initial panic attacks, they began to establish some form of order and cooperation. However, their struggle to survive in this narrow and dark space was ongoing. Food and water resources were dwindling rapidly. Speeches were frequently given by the leaders to prevent everyone from panicking. However, fear and hopelessness still shone in everyone's eyes. The darkness and silence were slowly engulfing their minds. Some couldn't even perceive how time was passing. Others began to experience hallucinations, their faces filled with ghosts created by hunger and fear. One miner decided to make a plan to understand what was happening underground by following an old mine tunnel. Perhaps they could find an exit. Others supported this risky endeavor, and they moved together. However, as they descended deeper into the tunnel, they encountered more horrifying surprises. They saw that their path was blocked, and they realized that going back was impossible. Now, there were two groups trapped, one in the main mine and the other in the tunnels. In the depths of the mine, the miners were trapped both physically and mentally. Their struggle to survive in this narrow and dark place was growing tougher by the day. There was no turning back now, and the battle for survival in this underground world, filled with terrifying challenges, would continue. Time was becoming increasingly precious for the trapped miners. Initially, an arrangement had been made for food and water resources, but these resources were rapidly depleting. The darkness and silence were heightening tension within the group. The miners trapped in the main section of the mine were seeking ways to communicate with their friends in the tunnels. Communication was crucial for a morale and information exchange. However, many tunnels were blocked, making communication increasingly difficult. The other group trapped in the tunnel was also struggling to survive on their own. This group had no food or water resources, and they were increasingly feeling the effects of hunger and thirst. Hallucinations and psychological distress had become not just the problem of a few individuals, but the entire group. Both groups were searching for ways to reach the outside world, but despair and fear were growing steadily. A group leader decided to explore the tunnels, thinking they might find an exit at the end of one. As they advanced through the tunnel, they encountered more dangers. The narrowness of the tunnel and cracked rocks made progress difficult. However, going back was also impossible. In the depths of the mine, the trapped miners were struggling to survive both underground and in the tunnels. They were trapped in the clutches of physical and psychological hardships. There was no way back, and the struggle to survive in this terrifying underground world was becoming even more agonizing. The situation of the trapped miners was becoming increasingly hopeless with each passing day. Communication breakdown and the depletion of food resources were further eroding the group's morale. The group trapped in the tunnel was trying to find an exit, but progress was becoming increasingly challenging as they advanced through the narrow and dark passages of the tunnel. The influence of cracked rocks and underground water was hindering their progress. Many tunnels were blocked or collapsed, while leaders tried to prevent the spread of despair within the group. Fear and hopelessness had now taken hold in everyone's eyes. The group trapped in the main section of the mine was anxiously waiting for the rescue of their friends in the tunnels. However, food and water resources were rapidly running out, and hunger and thirst were intensifying. They were also going through a psychologically challenging period. The group trapped in the tunnels had to backtrack, as they couldn't make progress, but they couldn't find a way back either. Now, two groups were trapped in separate locations, and communication between them was nearly impossible. The despair of the trapped miners was growing, and their search for a way out was becoming even more challenging. They were not only fighting for survival, but also desperately trying to find an escape route in the depths of the mine. The trapped miners were engaged in a desperate struggle to survive both underground and in the tunnels. They were battling physical and psychological hardships. However, they still held on to hope, hoping to find an exit. The despair and fear of the trapped miners were growing with each passing hour. Communication breakdown and the depletion of food resources were increasing tension among the groups. The group trapped in the tunnels was trying to find an exit, but obstacles and dangers were encountered at every step. As they advanced inside the tunnel, they noticed that the underground water was slowly rising. This was making even previously accessible areas dangerous. As the water level continued to rise, panic increased. A group leader decided that if the water level continued to rise, the only way was to abandon the tunnels. However, this decision also came with significant dangers. The narrowness of the tunnels was becoming even more hazardous as the water level rose. The other group trapped in the main section of the mine was still hoping for the rescue of their friends in the tunnels. However, food and water resources were almost depleted. Hunger and thirst were intensifying, increasing panic and helplessness within the group. The group trapped in the tunnels realized that the water level was rising and the tunnels were becoming increasingly dangerous. Their only way out was to retreat, but finding the way back would be challenging. In the depths of the mine, the trapped miners were engaged in a desperate struggle to survive both underground and in the tunnels. The rising water level and the depletion of food and water resources added to their difficulties. Their hopes of rescue are diminishing, and the harrowing struggle for survival in this dreadful underground world was becoming even more painful as the trapped miners faced challenges like the rising water level and the depletion of food resources. Breaking free from the grip of despair was becoming increasingly difficult. However, they didn't want to give up because resistance was the only way to stay alive. The group trapped in the tunnels continued their search for a way back. However, the narrowness of the tunnels and the rising water made progress difficult. They encountered new dangers at every moment, but they continued to press forward desperately. The group trapped in the main section of the mine wanted to hear the voices of their friends in the tunnels. However, communication was still impossible. Food and water resources were nearly depleted, and hunger and thirst were showing their effects. More and more with each passing hour, the lack of communication between the two groups was increasing their despair. Both groups were unaware of each other's situation and didn't know what to do. However, instead of giving up, they continued to fight desperately for survival, with one last hope of finding each other and ending this dreadful ordeal. In the depths of the mine, the trapped miners were engaged in a desperate struggle to survive both underground and in the tunnels. They battled physical and psychological hardships, but refused to give up and continued to search desperately for a way to not only survive, but also to find each other and bring an end to this horrifying experience. The last glimmer of hope inside the mine was dwindling rapidly. The water level had risen, and food and water resources were almost depleted. Communication was still cut off, and the two groups remained unaware of each other's existence. However, instead of succumbing to despair, they made one last desperate effort to stay alive. The group trapped in the tunnels continued to move forward inside the narrow and dark passages, facing hardships along the way. But this time, they saw a glimmer of light at the end of one tunnel. The light was a sign of an exit leading to the outside. With their last ounce of strength, the miners reached the exit at the end of the tunnel. When they emerged into the open air, the sunlight hit their eyes, and they had regained their freedom. The other group trapped in the main section of the mine was finally rescued as well. When they emerged outside, they celebrated the escape of their friends from the tunnels. This harrowing experience had strengthened the bonds between the two groups. The trapped miners came together and left behind the horrifying experience they had endured. This experience had changed them forever, but they had survived. They now understood the value of every moment and every breath more profoundly. The nightmare in the depths of the mine had come to an end. The trapped miners had managed to survive with solidarity and determination. This experience would impact them forever, but they were now free and looking toward the future with hope.